The funny thing is that, like, in terms of his, like, politics, I don't think Elon Musk was that reactionary a couple of years ago. I mean, surely, like, again, we're talking, like, Emerald Mine apartheid, like, white South African born during apartheid. Like, obviously, he's not exactly, like, a beacon of progressivism. But I don't think he's been, like, ideologically fascist this entire time. I think he's mostly just wanted to be, like, Tony Stark to people. But very much like Donald Trump, he will, like, occupy any ideology that gets him the most applause. And the far right are the people who want him to be their guy the most, so he will appeal to them, right? Like, keep in mind, I know it's really difficult to imagine this, but it was only a couple of years ago that Elon Musk was mostly associated with Reddit tech nerds. Do you see Reddit tech nerds talking about Elon Musk anymore? It's all far right people. It's all far right people now. It's not like a Reddit thing anymore. In fact, if you go on Reddit, a lot of people are shit talking him now. Anyway, oh yeah, it's an ego thing. He used to be associated. Guys, do you remember the days when Teslas were associated with like upper middle class, like nerdy progressive guys? I remember when Teslas were kind of in the same like ideological category as Priuses, where you kind of think of it as like a oh, this like a liberal, like, oh, they care about the environment. It's like it's an electric car. I mean, you know, the idea there would be, you know, you'd think that people who care about that would be a little bit more environmentally conscious, maybe a bit more glitzy because of the way Teslas look, but you know, outside of that. But now that connotation is just not there. Again, this is so very, very much Elon Musk is the closest the world has ever gotten to like capital will revert to fascism to protect its own interests. Elon Musk came out as a Republican less than 24 hours before the story breaking on how he sexually harassed an employee, then offered her money and a horse. He came out as a Republican pretty much entirely to say, like, you know, if anyone shit talks me in the next 24 hours, it's actually because they hate Republicans. So that's great. And like all of the reactionary stuff that Elon Musk used to go out of his way to defend, if you remember, it was like anti-labor stuff. Remember? He would defend like treating his workers poorly. He would say like China has a better work ethic because the people over there are like slaving away in sweatshops. And I think, you know, while his ego certainly gets caught up in that, I think that to a large extent, you know, so much of the ideological shift here has just been like, which party is more willing to let me like brutally, you know, exploit and rape my workers as much as I want? Well, the Republicans. Okay, then I'm a Republican. Let's go. It really is like just a screaming testament to the fact that capitalism and democracy can't coexist. Because as long as you have systems where people get far more power, the more wealth they have, and people with more wealth have different interests from everyone else, you're going to have them skew democracy in their favor. And right now, we're like, again, the big issue we have right now, like everyone's talking about it, everyone's paying attention to this, are 3 billionaires or former billionaires who are all collaborating openly with neo-Nazis in an effort to push conservative politics. That's what's happening politically right now. Seriously, that's it. There are only a couple hundred billionaires on Earth. You know that, right? What a remarkable coincidence that when fascism is fully and properly mounted at the doorstep of American civil society, it is being sort of envoyed by the wealthiest man on Earth, the America's first billionaire politician, and like an ultra wealthy celebrity who openly admitted that he's siding with the far right because he thinks that he'd be like a beneficiary of the same privileges as a white guy. Yeah, you've repeated this for 3 times now in the past 15 minutes, and yeah, and you're going to hear it a lot fucking more as this channel goes forward, to the extent that it can, too. This is critically important, and you know, the more people in this country understands that, the more awareness there is of this. Because the problem is, again, I wish I could like run this down to some complexity or whatever, but it's actually really simple. We're seeing basically the most distilled kind of politics, which is the weaponization of reactionary politics as a way of defending class interests. We've been seeing this happen for thousands of years. This is basically the like bedrock of Marxist socialism. And now it's happening again. So I don't know what to say really, other than like, oh, it's the textbook example of the thing that happens, you know? Like, oh, flips open econ textbook. Oh, somebody is trading guns and butter, and we see here at the middle of the line, there's an equilibrium. We're returning to textbook form. So, you know, much in the same way that a 101 textbook can only engage with so much nuance, there's only so much I can engage with as a, would-be analyst of the situation when things are this straightforward. What do you want to know? How do you debate somebody who's been pulled in by Kanye's, promises of what? What is Kanye even promising the people he wants to vote for him? Has he made any promises campaign-wise? Well, what do you even argue with? Like, what's even left, I've said this before. Debate is useful for, bringing over people who haven't fully, cemented themselves in a given position. You need to get at people before they're axiomatically in favor of the bad things they're pushing, You can move over people who are homophobic because they're uncomfortable or unfamiliar, or because they think that actually, homosexuality is like a mental illness. Those people can be moved over. Not always, not reliably, but sometimes. People who ideologically think that homosexuality is morally wrong on a fundamental level, very difficult to move those people over. That's because their axioms have shifted. They no longer share your axioms. They no longer think that human well-being is good, but this is a problem due to some confusion or wrong arguments or misbeliefs. They now think on a fundamental level that goodness may be good, but homosexuality is not goodness. It can't be goodness. It's outside that moral consideration. It's really tough to argue people out of this, There are still people to be brought over. How do we bring those people over then? You can't really. I mean, you can sometimes. It's not impossible, but there isn't a secret debate strategy that works against people like that. If there was, then I promise you would already know about it. There are, people who don't really care about ethics at all, who are purely nihilistic in that sense, or people who are ideologically committed to suffering as a good in and of itself, like people who think it's morally good for, say, trans people to die, of which there are a decent number. Argument, not always great. Social empowerment is the best thing you can do with these people. They need to be silenced. Some people say, oh, this is anti-freedom, to which I say, no, keeping Nazis from taking over your government is pro-freedom, actually. I actually think that's totally okay. I actually, see, this is a crazy thought that I have as, a normal human being. I actually think it's okay to be socially prejudiced against horrible people who want to hurt you. It's just an old-fashioned value that I have. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how things play out. There has to be some axiomatic starting point we can all go back to. No. Don't make the mistake of believing that there's some way of reasoning with these people. You can get them over sometimes as a matter of luck, or maybe their tummy hurts one day and they're a bit more emotionally weak. But I suffered for a long time under the mistaken belief that you could, there's always a way, well, if you can just get the right argument. It's not true. Unfortunately, it's just not. Diplomacy would be a lot easier if that was the case. It's not a reliable process, No, the best thing that we can really do is build social power. Man, you are proof that it's possible. No, I haven't convinced everyone who's ever listened to me. The people who get brought over from what I say are a small minority of the people who incidentally come across the arguments that I've made. But there are groups of people who are really, 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 really difficult to reach. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but ever since I made this channel, there have been people who have said over and over and over again, well, debate can't do everything. Debate can't do everything. And I've always agreed with those people. I'm just pointing out, those are the people for whom debate is just not really an effective way of bringing them over. It's, I mean, you might as well, try to debate a Christian out of believing in God, right? Because that's also, an axiomatic thing. It's a fundamental. I don't think the number of people being brought over will decrease with time. It's a matter of which people you target and what messaging you use. I'm only identifying a portion of the population who is less receptive to what you could possibly say to them. I mean, come on, you guys all know this. You all know the far right's gotten less reasonable over the past few years, more dogmatic, more zealous or zealous. Sorry, you all know that. I've pointed it out plenty of times. I only got deradicalized by Vaush because he's a man with a beard. There you go. See, that's an effective pointer. You think a strong anti-fascist push from mainstream media and other legacy media would be a big help? Well, it certainly doesn't hurt, but the problem is, unfortunately, as we've seen before in the history of fascist takeovers of different countries, pushback from liberal media isn't enough. Joe Biden needs to bring out the stick. Again, I am fully in favor of the legal prohibition of political power being accrued by anti-democratic candidates. I think that's perfectly fine and dandy. I think that's a sensible thing to believe in. And I think that's a pro-free speech and pro-democracy take, too. But, whatever.